I'm grateful that you all come. You know, I got to tell you that I'm pretty impressed when people show up on Sundays. Because I would just say unity is not an easy thing. Would you agree? Yes. That there's some work to be had here? Thank you, Liz. Liz has been practicing, so she knows what we're talking about. Last week we were talking about your keys. Did you bring your keys with you? Do you remember what your keys are? Remember, we talked about the key fob, you know, that helps open up our car. I won't set the alarm off today, but you press a button and something far away happens. Yes? Do you remember what the key was? It is a symbol for? Oh dear, good thing I'm talking about it again. Again this week. It's our thoughts. It's our thoughts. And I wanted to share one of my favorite scriptures from what Jesus said today in the book of Matthew up here on the screen. He said, I will give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. So, I don't know. I grew up in a faith system that just handed it all to God, and it was either God's fault or the devil's fault if things didn't go my way. But it's pretty clear here that we've been given those keys, and we're metaphysically interpreting those keys to be our thoughts. Our thoughts create that reality. One of the sayings from Charles Fillmore, who's one of our co-founders of Unity, he said, watch your thoughts when you're handling money, because your money is attached through your mind to the one source of all substance. When you think of your money, which is visible, as something directly attached to an invisible source that's giving or withholding according to your thought, you will have the key to all riches and the reason for all lack. So just bear with me a minute, because I'm going to try and demonstrate this. Okay, so can y'all see? So, because we're talking about God's abundant flow this month, I just wanted to demonstrate that this, Candy, come on, it's me. All right, so my mic, there we go. This is just a representation of all of God's infinite flow. So just see this as a symbol, and it's an example of what manifestation of our infinite good looks like, okay? And then over here on the other side, how's it look? Is it fluffy? Is it balanced? Fabulous? Okay, great. So this is a demonstration of that infinite spiritual energy that we talked about a few weeks ago, about the essence of God. We call it substance. So since it's sparkly and gold, I just thought that was the perfect representation of substance, okay? So now it's important to know, all right, this is what we're trying to manifest in our life in many ways. It could be health, it could be a loving relationship, it could be a new job, whatever, that feels like, hey, I'm expressing something good in my life. This over here is the source of it, but let's pay attention to what Charles Fillmore said. When you think of your money, which is visible, as something directly attached to an invisible source that is giving or withholding according to what? Your thought, you have the key to all riches and the reason for all lack. So who's responsible? Moi. Yes? All right, so you're getting the feel for it. Pay attention what's happening here between your ears when this isn't looking the way that you want it to, even though this is always here, always in infinite ways here. What's going on here that's bringing this about? That's what we're going to talk about today. I don't want to muss my hair. Okay, thanks for playing with me. So, one of the things we mentioned last week was about the divine law. And some people call it the law of attraction, the law of mind action, cause and effect. And the way that we described it was that when we hold thoughts or feelings or beliefs in our consciousness long enough, they reproduce. They bring to us in like kind. So that's why our third principle in unity, very important, says that we create our life experience with our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. And most of the time, even though the law is always working and always available to be working for our good, we are misusing it. We are pointing it in the wrong direction. And even though we're not understanding that it's working, the law understands very clearly. It's always sensing you. And what do I mean by that? Sensing you. What you are being. What are you being? You know what? Most people, here's what's funny, I think. Most people know what you are being, but they don't know what they are themselves being, right? Yeah. They come into your presence, they go, oh, not today. I'm not hanging out with that. But you never know that you're that person that they're thinking that about, right? We're just not self-aware enough. We aren't paying attention to not only the fact that there's a law that's responding to us, but our thoughts. How many of you really pay attention to your thoughts? You just think them and go on. And all the while, the law's in the background, working with them and reproducing for you. So it's up to you, bind or loose what you want in your life. Let me show you a list up here on the screen of some attitudes that we tend to be out in the world. And depending on which one you're choosing, you're either loosing that abundant flow for good or you're binding it tight and keeping it from you. And a lot of times it's the fact that we tend to resist anything that we don't want. Instead of just, okay, this happened, I'm going to just accept that this happened instead of push back against it. But it doesn't mean you have to stay there. Then you can go forward and choose something else instead. So, how many times do you have an opportunity to get angry with someone or worried about something? When if you were aware of that, if you noticed how it felt, certainly you must notice when you feel anger or fear in your being. That's your clue to be able to just take a step back and say, what would I prefer instead? Can I be loved? Can I be accepting? Can I be allowing in this situation? I mean, look at the list, and there's probably something on here that speaks to you. Does anybody see one that speaks to you? You don't have to say it out loud. Okay, we got big hands in the back, that's for sure. All right, good. All right, so just take that in and see if you can see the alternative to the one that you're tending to be stuck in. When we're binding the flow, it's because our focus, our thoughts are focused on out here. And you know what? When Charles and Myrtle Fillmore started, teaching and writing and describing the difference between our spiritual self and our human self, they used sense man to describe the human self because it's a being that is driven by its 5 physical senses. Okay? So that's what we're using most of the time as a first response to what's going on. What am I seeing? What am I hearing? What am I smelling? What don't I like, right? And we talked about this last week, I think, that's natural for the human sense man to always be on the lookout to make sure that it's not being threatened in some way. And so the natural response is something that we think is actually going to save us from trouble, but it's really just binding us to the problem. How many of you here watch the news? Anybody? Nobody? Good. Okay, one person watches the news. Jackie, we'll talk afterwards and see if we can't fix that for you. But would you say that your response to the news is cynical or perhaps resistant? Is that curing the problem on the news? No. How about when you have your 401k that you're living off of, your IRA, your retirement is starting to go downhill? We don't know why, except based on the fear of. How many times do you listen to the stock market report? Stocks dropped today for the fear of it's going to rain. I mean, you name it, stocks drop. And in the same way, we start to pull in. We start to withhold. What about when you hear somebody on the opposite political spectrum from you talking about what they want or what they're going to do? Do you just go, oh, good. Good luck with that. How many? No one? No one of the opposite political. Usually it's just like, oh my God, they're doing it again, right? So that smack in the head should be a key to understanding how that hurt. And true, what you're thinking about them is hurting us. When prices go up, and we go into the store and we see that our favorite chocolate and peanut butter ice cream has gone up again, So far, I have not stamped my foot, but I have literally said out loud, "You have got to be kidding me." Do you think I'm in any resistance whatsoever? A little bit. So we focus with these thoughts based on what we're seeing out here. And part of that is because it's just habit. It's just beliefs that we formed. And it never, with as lazy as sense man is, it's very difficult to get it to make a change. So it doesn't even occur to us that we can make a change. Not necessarily in the fact of what's happening out here, but how we are perceiving it and whether we should give power to it or not. Whether we believe that it actually can take our good from us. Somewhere or other on this planet, there is a cheaper brand of chocolate and peanut butter ice cream, and I will find it. Okay, so just that should make you happy. Okay, good. I don't have to stop here at this aisle. All right, so let me just share something with you from Joseph Murphy. He's written a lot of books that will help you understand how your thoughts are creating your reality. Some time ago, a brilliant businessman who had achieved great success in his field of expression said that his business was dropping off. His clerks were stealing, many of his customers had gone elsewhere. His reason was that he was involved in a marital problem, a bitterly contested divorce. Wow, he hated his wife, and his mind was polluted with anger, suppressed rage, and fear. Those are the keys he was using. The enemies were created by himself. Do you hear how he did that? Joseph Murphy explained to him that he was the only thinker in his world and that he was responsible for the way he was thinking about his wife. He began to see clearly that it's not what happens to him, but his reaction to it. The way he thinks about it that makes the difference between success and failure, or health and sickness. Accordingly, he practiced the law of substitution. He supplanted his negative thoughts with constructive thoughts and began to claim that there was a divine, harmonious solution to his legal problem and that divine wisdom would reign supreme. He discovered that the real enemies had been his own thoughts, created by him. So he practiced right thought, right feeling, and right action. A simple prayer that he used was, God thinks, speaks, and acts through me. Say that. God thinks, speaks, and acts through me. God loves me and cares for me. God loves me and cares for me. So when fear or hateful thoughts came to his mind, he immediately affirmed, God's love fills my soul. And thus he healed himself and his business prospered. And they lived happily ever after. You get the gist, right? Okay. So the right thought, the right feeling, the right action is kind of like noticing that my focus comes from my thoughts, which thoughts I'm choosing. My feelings are basically whatever it is that I prefer, and you can literally feel your way into something that you prefer instead, so that ultimately you're taking right action, which is making some decisions, using some words, taking steps in some direction. All of those you have power to do. You're the only thinker in your mind. You're the only one that decides what something means. You get to interpret it. Our thoughts create the focus, and from there, that means we've got the keys to the kingdom. Which door do we want to unlock? Which thought do we want to hold in consciousness? So if there's nothing else that you hear me say today, hear this. When you don't feel good about how your life is going, as soon as you notice it, ask yourself, what do I prefer instead? Go home, work on that. See you next week. I'm just kidding. But actually, I'll have to say it again because I think you're sleeping out there. This is exciting, really. When something is not working the way that you want it to in your life, the first thought that should come out of your mind after that is, what would I prefer instead? But Kitty, they deserve to be thrown in jail, or they deserve to be arrested, or they deserve to have their business taken from them. Well, Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. But that's not going to change anything for you except bind you to the problem. So if you want to set that free and set yourself free, ask yourself, what would I prefer instead? Esther Hicks is great on this. She wrote the book, The Law of Attraction. Your life experience is continually helping you identify what you want. Even as you're keenly aware of what you don't want, and we all are in that way, in that moment, you are becoming clear about what you do want. So let me stop here for a minute and just show you how that works. What's something you don't want? Taxes? Is that what I heard over there? Okay, illness. All right, start with taxes. What do you want instead of taxes? Abundance, yeah. If taxes are, if we're anti-taxes because it's hard to come up with the money to pay them, then it's the money that's the issue, not the taxes. It's your thought about the money that's the issue, not the taxes. What's your thought? What would you prefer instead? To be in touch with that abundant flow, Esther Hicks says, do not give thought to that which you do not want, for your attention to it attracts it. The key is to think about something else, something you do want. With practice, you will be able to tell by the way you feel if you are thinking about something unwanted or wanted. So of course, when you think about taxes and your brain goes, crap, and you just feel all stuck and bottled up inside, then just find a thought that feels better than that. Even if you have to kind of ease your way into it, like, okay, well, at least it's only once a year or twice a year. At least I saved enough money. At least I know where to go if I need more money. Just ease your way into it until you get to a place where you're totally not even focused on taxes any longer, and you're simply just breathing a sigh of relief that all things are going together, working together for your highest good. Focusing on what you prefer is that key that looses the flow. Otherwise, we're in the wrong frequency, dare I say that? We're in the wrong frequency to be able to receive what will open up the door to that divine flow. So start practicing a little bit. You'll notice when your energy starts to feel lighter about those difficult situations. Because as you get lighter, that's when you can hear the wisdom of God within you say, make this decision, take this action, go watch a movie that makes you laugh. I mean, sometimes that's it. Just feeling better, finding ways to feel better will lift your energy and allow you to access your divine guidance within so that you really do experience no limit to abundant flow. You know, we kind of are our worst enemy in that we usually decide before we even attempt to fix a problem to just live in the problem because it's just not possible to fix. That's what we've decided. If anybody ever see or read Alice in Wonderland? Okay, so remember that scene between her and the queen, and little Alice is saying, one can't believe impossible things. Whine, whine, whine. She must be like, what, 13, 12, somewhere in there. All right, and the queen says, I dare say you haven't had much practice, said the queen. When I was your age, I always did it for half an hour a day. Why, sometimes I believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. I'm just saying. That is really fun, so just try putting on that accent sometime. I'm going to try to put on 6 impossible things before breakfast today. You know, a lot of us have what they call an Achilles heel, which is another word for a weakness. So in some of our lives, we just keep repeating over and over again problems with handling money. Some of us, it's about a weakness in the body. Some of it's about getting along with other people. But it's because we've got those beliefs stored solid. You know, how can I get well? The doctor said it's chronic. You know, how can I keep my house? I'm 6 months behind on payments. How can I ever find love? I'm over 40. They say, you know, I'm just saying. Okay, so the answer, how, is with God, all things are possible. With God, all things are possible. And you don't need to know how all the details are going to come together. That is none of our business, which should be a huge relief off our shoulders. All we need to do is stay focused on the source. Remember that gold, sparkly, divine substance that's everywhere present. It's waiting for you to plant the seed of what you want and get out of the way. You know, science decided that it was impossible for the bumblebee not to fly. Did you know that? Based on how it's built. But I do not see bumblebees walking on the grass. I see them flying. Something must have happened where they chose not to listen to sense man, and they went right with what makes their heart sing? Flying. They didn't sit there and go, how do I bat my wings in order to raise this big, bulky body off the ground? It didn't. It just did it. Okay? So see yourself as a bumblebee. Start at the end. See where you want to go. And as you already get to the end, you're going to connect with that frequency, and you're going to open up to the ways, the means, the resources to actually get there. Jesus said that whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it. Past tense, already done, and it will be yours. Yeah, I know this sounds hard, but the fact that if you even hold that thought in your mind for 16 seconds, that sounds hard. It will become hard to your inner being and make it very difficult to make a change. So when that big mouth shows up and says, that's hard, you say, just be at peace, be still. Let's go over here and talk about what we prefer instead. Little by little, we start to train that inner consciousness. What would it feel like to already have the desire that you're seeking in your life? Take a wild guess. What would it feel like? Awesome. Joy. Free, relief, lighter. Yes. Basically anything good, right? To have this already over with and you're already living in your heart's desire. So it's happy, it's joyful, it's at least content. I like relief. If you can't get to anything else, get to relief. Okay, rumor has it if you get to 51% of hope, then you're in the neighborhood of starting to form this deep, solid frequency or vibration that you're sending out to the universe to notice and bring back to us. Start being your preference. And that could, okay, Kitty's going to go weird on you, but just consider this. Well, first of all, this is not weird. This is absolute spiritual truth. You are not your human body. You are not your personality. You are what? Spirit. Yeah. And that means that you are eternal, right? It means that you're infinite. It means that you're divinely wise. It means that you're pure love. It means that you're the constant flow, divine abundance. You already are as good as it gets. You're just inhabiting this veil, this, shield that keeps us from remembering that. And we're giving the human in us, the sense man, the right to determine our future. So what I'm asking you to do with this message about what would you prefer instead, you might just start with, I prefer to be wide awake to my spiritual nature. Boy, that would be a good one, because at that point, everything goes well for us. And how can that be? I'm just kind of playing with these ideas right now, just doing a lot of reading and checking, and I keep hearing this idea repeated. And that idea is that there are multiple dimensions right here. Multiple dimensions right here. And that you're in the one that you match with your energy, with your belief system. And when you choose a dimension that is the kingdom of God within you, as Jesus said, now you're at a place where shortage and sickness and fear and anger and conflict don't exist. That's what I think happened when Jesus was in the presence of somebody who was ill, is that he was in this higher dimension of the kingdom of heaven where there is no illness, and they looked at him and he looked at them, and they just connected on that level of spirit, and their bodies just followed suit. Suddenly everything was lifted up. That's what you might call a miracle. That's why it could happen instantly, is because we just move up into a higher dimension where now we're in alignment with wholeness, because that's all there is in the spiritual dimension is wholeness, and we don't have to worry about this sickness being chronic. We don't have to worry about this conflict being ongoing. But our work is to keep our focus on what we prefer instead, and may your preference be always related to something of God. Start there, everything else will fall into place. What feels good? Just keep asking yourself, What feels better? What is the choice that I want to make? And this is important because a lot of times we get stuck in making a choice, deciding what it is that we want. Who here has a problem knowing what it is that you want? Yeah, that's a very common thing for people. So let that problem be kind of the catalyst that sends you over in that direction. For instance, I don't want to work with this person who is, and then you could list all of the things that you think are wrong with them. We're always really good at that. We know what we don't want. But that should tell you then what you do want. I want to work with someone who is, and then you start thinking about those qualities. Well, guess what? The way to really make that happen is for you to become those qualities. When you start being peaceful, kind, considerate, helpful, then that's all you're going to attract in your life. Does that make sense? Okay, so decide what it is that you want by paying attention to the things that you're complaining about all the time and look towards something better. But you need to decide because you need to tell the universe where it is that you want to go. Otherwise, it's just going to hold you to what you are being. So deciding doesn't just tell the universe, it actually tells you how to get straight in your emotions, in your belief system. Something that was written in the scriptures thousands of years ago in the book of Job. Remember Job? When everything's going wrong. He was told, you will decide on a matter, and it will be established for you, and light will shine on your ways. Well, that really does depend on what you decide. If you decide that you're a loser and bad things always happen to you, then you ain't going to get no light on your way. But you could decide that God is your source, that infinite supply is everywhere present, that the heart of love lives at the heart of me, and all things are working together for my highest good. Then you're pointing the universe in the right direction. So again, Esther Hicks says, all you have to do is decide what it is you would like to experience, and then, here it is, allow it in order to achieve it. Before you can experience something in your physical life, you must first give thought to it. Your thought is the invitation, and without it, it will not come. We're encouraging an intentional deciding of what is wanted. Set time aside every day, can you do that? Every day to intentionally bring your thoughts together into a sort of vision of what you want to experience in your life. And here's something that we don't think of very often. Make it fun. Your imagination is within your hands. It's within your power to decide what to picture in your mind's eye. What if you started picturing fun in your life? And again, skip the details about how it's going to happen. That's the work of the universe. You just need to get there in the fun energy for it to show up in your life. Does that make sense? Name it, claim it, take action. Because without decisions, we just stay stuck where we are. Stuck is stagnant. Stagnant is death. We don't want that. We want to keep moving and telling the universe, meet you there, I'll meet you there, I'll meet you there. Here's where I want to go. And so many of you get frozen with, what if I make the wrong decision? Right? Anybody experience that? What if I make the wrong decision? So first of all, I don't think there's anything true about a wrong decision, because no matter what you decide, your soul is going to learn from the experience. But how about if every decision, the only decisions you make are the ones that lead to joy? I'm not kidding. Just notice if you have an adverse reaction to that, and let's talk afterwards. Actually, hey, we're having food for thought today. Write that one down. Let's talk about that. You get free lunch, and we'll talk more about this today. So if you heard something that was like, whoa, I don't think I can do that, or I don't think that's right, Kitty. Did you check with the Pope on this? I'm just saying, keep leaning towards joy, and you will find your highest good in that direction. So how do we change focus? Let me just give you some suggestions. We're going to have a list up here on the screen for you. When it's either hard for you to focus on something in particular or decide what it is that you want. How about if you just start with that, what's the obstacle? What's the repeating problem in my life? Or it could be just a little one. If you want to practice on something small, start there. Could be your health, could be finances, could be relationships. And once you identify what that problem is, then just ask yourself the question, what do I prefer instead? stretch out a little bit and say, wouldn't it be cool if, wouldn't it be nice if, or I'm really looking forward to fill in the blank. Dream big. There are no limits to this. You're a spiritual being, so play this for fun. And then ask yourself, why do I want it that way? And I think this is kind of important because if your motive for changing something that you don't like is coming from fear, not a good thing to do. Why is it that I want this? It might be because I don't want to have to deal with that person anymore. Or I don't want to lose my job. I want to make sure that I have a job. So we can come up with all kinds of reasons, but it's important that the reason that we are creating this experience in our life is for my highest good, or to be good in someone else's life. Why do I want it? How would my life improve? There's another one for you. How would my life improve if this were done? Just think about what you can't do right now and what you could do if that had changed. How would I behave if this were changed? Would I be doing something that I like more or less? Just notice if you're really on the right track here. What can I stop doing when this happens? A lot of times we are in codependent mode. And when we certainly get into that state of self-love, we no longer have to be so tied into what everybody else thinks of us, right? That's a good reason. What divine quality would help transform this situation if it were in me right now? So, gosh, infinite qualities of the divine. Start with your 12 powers. And you know what? We've got a bookmark out there on the welcome table when you first come in that has the list of 12 powers, including affirmations that are good to use to retrain the mind. So just choose one of those and sink into that. What does it feel like to be wisdom? We all could use a little bit more of that. What does it feel like to be wisdom? How would that express in me? And ask yourself, how would I feel if this were resolved? We kind of went through that. How would I feel? Wow, grateful, relieved, excited. And then live in that feeling for a while. Just feel it in your being, because now you're becoming it, and now you're drawing to you more energy, more circumstances, more resources along those lines. And when you practice this on a daily basis, and it's starting to become clearer and clearer in your consciousness, at some point, just start checking up on yourself and notice what you find yourself talking about. Because if we're still talking about the problem, we're just keeping ourselves back in the stuck mode, right? We're binding ourselves back to that. So are you focused on it coming to be, or are you focused on the lack of it? Make some changes. And those affirmations I just talked to you about on the card are good ways to start when you catch yourself in a negative of affirmation, actually. Is that such a thing? Affirmation and negative? Probably not. But when you find yourself saying things that do not lift you up, then it's time to renew the mind with spiritual truth. Find spiritual truth that makes sense to you and lifts you up. Let words like, I allow good to flow, up here on the screen. Say that with me. I allow good to flow. The next one together. The universe is working for my highest good today. And next, if I'm not happy about this, what would I prefer instead? Yeah, train the mind so that we can begin to align with the highest good that the universe has available to us. You don't have to earn this worthiness. You already are. As a matter of fact, your natural self already is that divine wholeness. We just have to close that gap or lift that veil and reveal the truth of who we really are. And that's when life gets really fun. Okay, so let's take this into meditation and see if we can't just relax a little and keep our thoughts turned towards what we prefer instead. Let's begin by centering in our chair, feeling its support. Leaning back against the back of your chair. Feet on the floor. recognizing the entire planet is supporting you right now. We are grounded, centered. Deep breath through your heart space, as if you're breathing through your heart. And release. A cleansing breath, letting go of the feelings that do not serve you right now. Releasing. Breathing in the first good feeling you can think of. Breathe that in and release. If you could feel any way that you wanted to right now, what would that feeling be? Now breathe it in. See it saturating your entire being from the top of your head to the tip of your toes. Relax into that feeling. Knowing there is truth behind that good feeling. If we think about feeling healthy and strong, flexible, powerful, all divine qualities, there's a blueprint already informing every cell of my body with strength and health, natural well-being. I prefer that well-being to express itself fully in me. How would that feel? Take that in as a breath. Release anything unlike that. When I think about the state of my supply, how would I like to feel? Grateful, content, easy, excited, welcoming. We allow that divine substance to flow freely into our life experience as we plant those fun, creative seeds into that divine field of infinite potential. Take a moment to just imagine something that you'd like to manifest in your life. What is that? What's the benefit of manifesting that in your life? How does it feel to have that manifest in your life? Just rest in that feeling for a moment. Let it grow and deepen and strengthen in you as you think about manifesting. How does it feel? Take a moment to imagine your relationship with the people around you, not just your family and friends or workmates, but the world, the world's population around you. How can that get better? How can my relationship with the world express in good, in positive ways? What would that look like? How would I change and be as I have a relationship with every person on this planet through the eyes of love and acceptance? What does that look like? Who am I? How does it feel to be that person? How is the world changing because I'm choosing to be that person? Loving Spirit, so grateful to be an expression, an extension of the one presence and power that is pure love, one with the infinite mind of knowing, one with the power of life and strength. There is nothing that can stand between me and my highest good. There is no one that can keep me from experience the divine good of God in me. In that knowing that is true, I now relax and allow it to be. This is the truth of my being, and now I let it be. And so it is. Amen.